Hello.
Hello.
Good to see you today.
Also,
Hello, Yetunde. And hello, Professor Jorge Pontes from Brazil. Thank you so much for your presence, everybody. Thank you so much.
Hello. Hi, hello, everybody.
thank you. Thank you. You are
And
welcome.
where is Rachel? Emmanuel, where is Rachel? Rachel
Yeah.
Fischer is here.
Yeah, we are okay. We are waiting for her.
Right.
Maybe she has some technical problems. Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Last time she told me that in her country, her city, they have electricity problems. So, yes.
Okay, my friend. Don't worry. Everything is okay. Thank you so
Everything
much,
is okay.
everybody. I am really happy to be here. And today,
Yeah.
today we have a real special session because we got a special guest like Maja Zaric and everyone. Welcome and coming. We are ready.
Yeah, we are ready. Everything is ready.
Okay,
Yes.
let's continue.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, my friend.
Yes. Thank you,
Let's
Professor
go.
Felipe. Yeah.
Is it time?
It is time. It is time. It is time. Yes. Today we are very happy to be here together, and we welcome everybody. Before we continue, let me introduce everybody here, our partners, our colleague, and it is a very great pleasure for us to present to you, to introduce you, Professor Felipe Chibás Ortiz, one of the key ambassadors of MIL City in the world. He is a well-known professor, writer, poet, and researcher, international co-leader of MIL City initiative, member of UNESCO MIL Alliance in Brazil. He teaches at University of Sao Paulo, Brasilia. Professor Felipe, the head of this meeting, you are welcome.
Thank you so much, my dear friend. Thank you so much, everybody. My special thanks to Mrs. Maja Saric for your presence. My contribution to is in this way. Of course, my greetings for everybody, and special too for Maha Bashri, Professor Dr. Maha Bashri, Professor Dr. Rachel Fischer, Professor Dr. Jorge Pontes. There are our guests too. Of course, this is a very, very special day. And in this day, I want to share some ideas about my books, about my proposals. Please, Comey, Emmanuel Comey, Professor Emmanuel Comey, you can share my slides. Of course, a special thanks to Professor Emmanuel Comey for your organization and your careful preparation of this special session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Felipe. Let me do you see?
Yeah, I see. Thank you. Well, we are here to share some ideas, of course. My presentation, the title of my presentation is An International Vision of MIL Cities from UNESCO's vision. Right. Well, media and information literacy is a new concept. It's considered a combined set of skills, but also a practical convergence where journalists, information specialists, libraries, educators, among others, and their related activities met. According Muratova Alton Grizzly, of course, Iami Sedova. Today, we're thinking about networks of the 5 agents of innovation from around the world: governments, companies, educators, artists, and the common citizen. This point is very important because these points, the 5 agents of innovation, are the middle of this approach. Thank you. Please, Emmanuel, yes, the next. MIL is considered essential. No. This one, please. MIL is considered essential for citizen participation, good governance, intercultural and interfaith dialogue, and sustainable development. This approach highlights the need to prioritize empowerment over protectionism for the vulnerable groups. It also promotes cultural and linguistic diversity and the balance of joint actions and specific actions in each country or region. All this necessary requires public policies aimed at this. The next, please. Professor Emmanuel. But what is a MIL city? The concept of MIL city is very important to understand everything. A MIL city, or Media and Information Literacy Cities, is a framework developed by UNESCO, our urban space that can use artificial intelligence and other new technologies, but with ethic, respect for diversities, organic empowerment of every citizen, educating critical and creative thinking, valuing ecology in sustainable way, new affectivity, combating misinformation, fake news, deep fakes, and the post-truths. This framework has synergies or includes other paradigms of the cities, like sustainable cities, like smart cities, and others. But the middle is, of course, the citizen. The middle of this approach is the citizen, the simple citizen, and the diversities. We speak about the post-human diversities. Please, the next. MILCity approach has been inserted in the vision of the UN 2030 agenda, and especially of objective number 11, sustainable cities and communities. The next, please. The citizen in this model, in this proposal, is the central point is the simple citizen. And we have metrics, 13 metrics, and 262 metrics to evaluate the cities. Please, the next. But what are the world cities challenges according to MIL, to Media and Information Literacy approach? Well, we got some challenge here. Integrate solution in urban policies, different sectors of the city government and different stakeholders, operationalize the proposals of the adopted paradigms, having a legal regulation. This point is very important. Legal regulation. We need, of course, urban policies, but we need too a legal regulation, technological update, efficient use of data, but with a post-human focus, create a culture in people, institutions, companies, startups to share data, data security, and ethical use. This point is very important too. Decrease cultural barriers with women, blacks, Indians, youth, the other life, religion, etc. Contemplate all social class, groups, and minorities in the implemented solutions. Incorporate multicultural communication into the city's electronic governance, and integrate the data and information generated by the city into platforms to generate knowledge. The next, please. The next. Well, for the implementation of MIL cities, we need overcome the cultural barriers to communication. This point is very important too. It's a new contribution and very necessary. we got a methodology of analyze indicated by UNESCO for this. This methodology is methodology of 20 modalities of cultural barriers and 5 dimensions of creativity. We have barriers like ethnocentrism, religiocentrism, sensualism, and others. Thank you. The other slide, please. So, what is the solution? The solution for us is the creation of the International Innovation Center for Development of Cities with Media and Information Literacy in the University of São Paulo. Of course, the implementation of the MILCTIES model in the cities. We developed in the city of São Paulo, together with the University of São Paulo, private companies, and the support of UNESCO, and other universities of this center, International Innovation Center for Development of Cities with Media and Information Literacy. This center will bring together networks of researchers, professors, students, entrepreneurs, and activists from Brazil and other countries interested in developing media and information literacy cities. The other, please. I minister in this university. That discipline, the name of discipline is MIL Cities and Post-Human Diversities and Ethics too. We developed together with UNESCO and implemented of the MIL Cities application. The name of this application to evaluate cities is MIL City Metrics. We work together with Acton Grizzly in this proposal too. The next, please. And to go deeper, can use this book, Marketing, Innovation, Marketing, Communication, Technology, Innovation in the MIL Cities, in the vision of UNESCO, and from smart cities to MIL cities, metrics inspired by UNESCO's vision. Let's continue, please. I suggest to read for the Latin American and Caribbean vision of MIL, this book, Navigating in the Infodemic with MIL. Let's continue, please. We got these books too for the more international vision, data vision of MIL cities in the books MIL Cities from UNESCO Agenda 2030, Agenda 2030, sorry, and to MIL cities indicators and metrics and cases. These books I recommend because show the theoretical basis of the MIL cities. Let's continue, please. Well, my conclusion. It's necessary to educate in skills related to critical thinking and creativity thinking in formal and non-formal education, but in all the city, but with ethic. All of this is increasingly placed in the context of MIL according to UNESCO's event Internet for Trust in Paris 2023. MIL cities approach helps to transcend cultural barriers to communication, looking for peace and integrate cities and countries with clear objectives, integrating them into the UNESCO World MIL Network. We need a scientific approach to a study of MIL cities. We need to share this knowledge with networks of the 5 agents of innovation from around the world, governments, companies, educators, artists, and the common citizen. Summarizing, we need a new approach of communication in this moment. That's why this MIL Cities initiative is so important. That's my principal ideas. Thank you so much for your passing with me. And of course, you got the floor, dear professor, dear friend, Maja Zaric. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Professor Dr. Emmanuel Comiconacou.
Thank you, Professor Felipe, for this introduction summary of MIL City project in the world. And we are very happy to hear about the project, its challenge, implementation strategies, and the solution. Yeah, before we give the floor to Ms. Maja Zaric, let me welcome again all our panelists and our partner. We want to welcome Maja Zaric. She is the head of Division of International Cooperation in the field of media, Ministry of Information and Telecommunication in Serbia. She is coming from Serbia. And Dr. Maha Bashri is one of our early partners of Building MIL Cities Initiative. She is an associate professor of communication at Media and Creative Industry Department at United Arabic Emirates University. We have also Dr. Ayobulu Yetunde from Nigeria, lecturer at the Department of Mass Communication. You are welcome today. And we have Rachel from South Africa. She is our partner in Building MIL City programs, a researcher, activist, ethics. She is the co-founder of 3 consulting firms. You are welcome. And we have Professor John Pontes from Brasilia, working together with Professor Felipe. You are welcome among us today. He is a professor, writer, and a researcher at University of Sao Paulo. You are welcome. And we have Miss Sabrina Saint-Louis from Canada. She is executive secretary at Mike Coran Foundation. She is a precious partner of Building MIL Cities since 2019, and we want to thank her for her support. We have Professor Advocate from Togo, who joined us. He is a professor in literature, and since we are working here, he is together with us. He helped us to implement this project in Togo. And we have also our colleague from Togo, Mrs. Mathilde Pala. She is the director of Planner Radio Efrata. You are welcome among us. So, Dr. Professor Felipe, thank you so much for sharing this introductory presentation. Now, we are going to let the floor to Mrs. Maja Zaric, the head of division for international cooperative in field of media at the Ministry of Information and Telecommunication of Serbia. She is our key guest today. He will share his idea with us on the topic UNESCO MIL Cities as an innovative tool to develop responsive and ethical communication in Serbia municipality. Mrs. Maja Zaric, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished audience, fellow advocates, friends for media information literacy, it is with great pleasure and honor that I stand here today before you as a keynote speaker on such an inspirational and important topic. And I really thank Professor Felipe for the great introduction of the topic that we had. Today, I aim to shed a light on the efforts and the progress that we made in Serbia to promote media information literacy, emphasizing the crucial role that it plays in fostering informed, engaged, empowered communities within our increasingly digital world. In my presentation, I will be using main criteria from the global framework for MIL cities to showcase Belgrade as an inspiring MIL city, because I think this way we can see concretely how the tool before us can be useful in so many ways. So one of the first indicators are raising awareness about media information literacy by organizing at least one public activity in the public space to promote MIL learning at least twice per year. So I will take you back in 2019 when in Belgrade we hosted International Expert MIL meeting that encompassed over 40 experts, and some of you attended that meeting. That was also attended by a Director General of UNESCO, Mrs. Audrey Azoulay, and Serbia's highest government officials. So this productive meeting had two outcomes. So one was the start of writing the second edition of the MIL for teachers tool by UNESCO, and the other one was the first, so to say, policy in media information literacy tool, which we called Belgrade Recommendations for global recommendations for MIL curricula. In this year, in 2019, we also started to celebrate UNESCO MIL Week. So we organized a lot of activities in Belgrade, but not only in Belgrade, but we will focus in Belgrade at that time. So in 2020, we also organized international workshop, which was first of a kind, that had focus on AI and its impact on media information literacy. So we, at the time, had, of course, also UNESCO experts at this workshop. And what was particular about it is that us from the government also had undergone that workshop together with all other relevant stakeholders for media information literacy, such as academia, NGOs, international organizations, and so on. So we organized that in Belgrade in 2020, just before the pandemic started. In 2020, when the pandemic started, we organized a series of webinars on media information literacy for different target groups on infodemic and disinformation during COVID, as well as we organized webinars for parents, which we call from digital pacifier and digital nanny all the way to digital rebel. So we organized this with our EU partners. For example, in 2021, we launched together with UNESCO the second edition of MIL curricula for teachers and educators. As well, in November, we launched together with UNESCO global recommendation for the guidelines on MIL curricula development. And last year, we had international conference on media literacy for parents and international conference on AI and its effect on freedom of expression with OSCE. So these are just example of large international conferences that we have, but we of course have throughout the year lots of events not organized only by the ministry, but from the various stakeholders regarding the media information literacy. So another indicator is integrating media information literacy learning in the information and media policies of local government authorities. And from this point, we actually can drive on the local level, from the national level, from strategies that also encompass media information literacy and digital literacy. So just to name a few, we have a media strategy and the relevant action plan, and the whole chapter 5 is devoted to media and digital literacy. Then we have the strategy for development of digital skills and its relevant action plan strategies relevant to youth, to education, and so on. And they all encompass measures and activities to communicate and boost creative actions to transmit media information literacy in the process. Another indicator is offering youth information and media services to young people and youth organizations. So how do we do this? Well, in previous years, we have published the MIL handbook for teachers and educators at the end of 2020 with the support of EU. And this handbook actually had its hard copy, which a few thousands of it are in school libraries throughout Belgrade, but also other schools in other cities. We conducted twice a year around 15 workshops in pre-university institutions. So from preschool through elementary, secondary school, all the way up to the university. We held different media information literacy webinars, and we also collaborated with different projects that are specialized in improvement of media information literacy for youth. So another indicator is to infuse media information literacy training for older population in existing cities. So I would like to draw the attention on one of the biggest projects at the time that we have. It's called Digital Expedition. It was launched in 2021, currently is still ongoing. It was launched at the initiative of the Prime Minister of Serbia. And so in 2023, now it's ongoing. For 2023, at least 10 cities will be included. So within this digital expedition, actually, we have a multi-stakeholder approach through thematic lectures and discussions with experts from the Ministry of Information and Telecommunication, where I come from the Ministry of Labor, Employment, Veteran and Social Affairs, and the Commission for Information of Public Importance and Personal Data Protection, and the Office for IT and E-Government. The citizens of many cities throughout these years have had the opportunity to learn everything about the digital literacy, media literacy, the importance of digital skills, safe behavior in the online world, as well as the other advantages of using the internet in the digital space. For example, when we are talking about elder citizens and e-government during the COVID times, for example, my parents had the opportunity, but we as well, I mean, it's not related just to age, to apply for vaccination via e-government portal. So this is something that was very, very useful in these fearful times. So these caravan lectures are aimed to the broadest population, from young people to their parents and the oldest fellow citizens and civil servants. So this is why they're held at 3 locations in each city: on the main city square, in associations for pensioner clubs, and as well in local self-government units. Another indicator that we have is target MIL training to groups at risk of marginalization in order to help them make the best use of media information literacy. We also coordinate and participate in many activities that are especially targeting these marginalized groups. And also the ministry has a system of co-financing the media content, the production of media content with the topics of media information literacy. Also, that's the one way that we channel tools that can be devoted to these special vulnerable groups. We also, when it comes to articulating policies to integrate MIL into formal and informal education curricula, so we participated in every strategy that deals with formal education, and also we produced the MIL handbook for teachers and educators. On this handbook, we were working for 2 years, 2018 and 2020. So we had during the working group, we had 12 institutions. We had ongoing public consultation by chapters online, and we also collaborated with all relevant MIL stakeholders from NGOs and projects, academia, media, journalistic associations, and so on. Also, within non-formal education, with the USAID project New Literacy, we produced handbook for parents. That handbook for parents is also based, so to say, on our MIL handbook for teachers to get that 360-degree approach. We also produced, with the same USAID project, MIL for Public Administration in cooperation with National Academy for Public Administration. So we tailor-made workshops for municipalities and different institutions in Belgrade on media literacy in 2021 and 2022, and this training on media information literacy is a part of official program of the National Academy for Public Administration since the last year. We also developed with the same project a handbook for businesses that follows the same topics that were discussed in all of our handbooks. All of the handbooks can be accessed also digitally, and all of the topics from the handbooks are also discussed within Digital Expedition. So the next indicator is to offer political and practical support to libraries in offering MIL training. So I must say that many of the events that were organized in Belgrade, but not only in Belgrade, were organized in spaces such as libraries and museums, just to have special dedications to involve these places in the new literacy venues. Another indicator is collaboration with NGOs and civil society actors working on MIL. So in 2018, we have established the coordination of media information literacy stakeholders. We gather them once or twice a year in order to share plans and activities, as well as to create or just raise awareness about different initiatives. We have over 40 stakeholders coming from media and journalistic associations, international organizations, academia, ICT, gaming, projects, experts. So since 2018, we have discussed many topics and many activities. We have also incorporated media information literacy in various aspects of city life through campaigns. A few examples to state. For example, last year we had a campaign targeting parents and children. For example, the campaign was not only communicated online through social media, but also on TV channels. And we had them also in movie theaters as a jingle before the animated or just movies for children. Another good example that we have from last year and this year it goes on as well is the support of creating high-end media content and media information literacy on public service media. We have a TV series called Family Network that discusses media literacy topics from handbooks as well. So in conclusion, I would like to say that I hope that my speech today shows that UNESCO Global Framework for Media Information Literacy Cities offers a clear vision, objectives, and smart indicators that are extremely easy to follow or to look upon when creating our own plan and tailoring activities for the better media literate future. Empowering citizens with media and digital skills in cities around the world is a vital step towards building informed and resilient communities. It is through this collaboration, education, and continuous development of innovative strategies that we can bridge the digital divide and enable citizens to critically navigate the over-complex landscape of the media ecosystem. So together, let us continue to champion media information literacy, working hand in hand from all corners of the world to create media information literate cities that shape a brighter and more inclusive future for all. Thank you very much for having me today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mrs. Maja Zaric, for your presentation. It is very accurate. You have shared with us in a short time many kind of information, your activities in Serbia, and it is our pleasure to have the content if you can share it with us. So,
unfortunately, I didn't make the presentation, but I can make out of this presentation later on and share it.
Okay, thank you very much. So, as we have less time left, I will let the floor to Mrs. Rachel to present her work. So after the presentation, you have the opportunity to ask questions, to contribute. So, Rachel, you have the floor.
Thank you so much for our chair, Professor Kunoko and Professor Felipe Chibás Ortiz. And thank you for the opportunity to present again. And my fellow panelists, we're definitely a media and information literacy family. So it's always my pleasure to collaborate with you on these events. So looking at MILCities as a tool for, and I put in brackets, Serbia's municipalities, perhaps for all municipalities across the globe. I hope this would be useful. And indeed, Maya, our collaboration and meeting you in 2019 will always be memorable. And I think since then we've grown quite a bit. And thinking of the work that you are doing in Serbia and being such a global leader, I was considering, can one add to this? And I considered a matrix, take it as you may, based on the 6 priority areas of UNESCO. So if we look at the Information for All program of UNESCO, and you also get the IPDC, the International Program for the Development of Communication, IFAP looks at information for all, essentially. Of the 6 priority areas, information literacy is one of those. Now, most of you will know my predominant focus is on information ethics, but since this does consider ethics and development of MIL cities, one cannot differentiate or split them. I think they'll always go hand in hand. So this normative tool, what it does is look at each of the objectives, and I can go through them quickly, or priority areas. It's information for development, information literacy, accessibility, preservation of information, ethics, as well as multilingualism in the cyberspace. So taking consideration, not everybody can speak English, French, or Spanish, or Cantonese. So it really is important for us to make accessible information, especially for minority and marginalized communities. So what this matrix does essentially is to look at each of these objectives, what it stands for and what it means within the framework of UNESCO's IFAP program, looking at the guiding questions that can help us implement this within a MIL city or a municipality, or even within a policy itself. If we look at AI, it's everywhere. Well, literally it's everywhere. But the discussions on regulations, legislation, ethics and frameworks is also being raised more often because legislation always takes much longer to come to fruition and be implemented. But until then, it needs to be regulated to make sure citizens are not harmed and to guide decision-making and behavior. So there's some prodding questions under each and then recommended actions of how one then can promote these policy considerations, just to prod what can occur. For information literacy itself, if we're looking at how to ensure that people have got information or access to information, but also know how to use it effectively. If we want to look at empowering citizens with information and media and information literacy, it is also sometimes good to consider negative effects. So what does it mean to be illiterate? How does it disempower citizens? So to understand their contexts, we can more appropriately address it. So once again, a bottom-up approach and not remaining alienated in ivory towers, which we can easily do as academics or policymakers or politicians. And then recommended actions is looking at capacities building, assessing, discerning gaps, and how can we attend to these gaps. Information preservation is if we're looking even at archives, how are these collected and maintained in terms of memory of the world even. I mean, AI, I have to say ChatGPT, I know everybody is speaking of it. I mean, it does mine information up until about 2021, but its capabilities can become a lot better. But it essentially draws on information that is available online, which can also be skewed, right? Because humans are the ones uploading the data onto the internet. So if it's misinformation, if it's inaccurate, if it's fake news or done for malicious purposes, the information that students or citizens think they will be getting that is valid and useful that they can trust might not be. And then if there's crucial information not being made available digitally, we can also not have access to it, and that can get lost. Information ethics concerns everything within the information life cycle, and we need to consider in this life cycle not only the consequences of our actions and the processes, but once again, the needs of the end user. And then how do we promote the principles such as the International Federation for Library Associations? How do we promote the principles of freedom of access to information and freedom of expression? In our previous MIL webinar, we were discussing about elections and voting. And I mean, all the elections that are taking place this year and next year, etc., we are looking at concerning instances where freedom of expression is being suppressed. And then how people's access to quality, trustworthy information can be implicated, which will affect voter behavior and citizen behavior. I've mentioned accessibility quite a bit, but once again, there are some guiding questions where we have to ask what is government's role in collaboration with public and private sector, and how can these different actors between public, private, and specialists collaborate? And it's essentially what is happening in this forum, right? Maya, you represent government and your collaboration with UNESCO, that is intergovernmental. All of us as researchers and even now activists, I mean, and this is a perfect way to showcase to others how we can have cross-sectoral collaboration. And then finally, I did mention multilingualism. How do we look at our roles towards being more inclusive of different languages? How do we promote minority languages? I know UNESCO also has a tool for tracking languages that are in danger at the risk of going extinct. They can also track the size of populations utilizing certain languages. But I know also it's concerning, and I might be wrong in terms of statistics, but how within a couple of decades, potentially 70% of the languages worldwide will go extinct because it's not being practiced, it's not being archived, if I can say that again, in the memory of the world. And with older generations passing away, this can also get lost. Just briefly, this matrix, according to the 6 priority areas, it does help potentially with broadening the scope of responsible and ethical communication in policies, not then only to be implemented by government, municipalities, but other entities looking at developing responsible and ethical behavior in their organizations. So if we take all of these together, policy, normative considerations, we can contribute towards promoting MIL cities, but also assisting them to become better established and integrated. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Rachel, for your presentation, which focus on the 6 objectives of FIP: information development, information literacy, information preservation, information ethics, information accessibility, and multiculturalism, multilingualism. So it is very, very interesting to hear you. And we'll go to give the floor to Dr. Maha for her presentation. After all, we will have the opportunity to ask questions. Thank you very much. Dr. Maha, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. It's really good to be with you guys today. And Maya, honestly, your presentation is grounded in what's happening in the outside world. We always, like Rachel said, we talk through the lens of the ivory tower, and that's where this is the missing link. We need to understand what's happening on the ground. So I think my presentation ties really well into what you had said and what Rachel also is more on the relationship between communication, governance, both at the, obviously, the state level and the local level, and then MIL cities. So when we talk about media and information literacy in cities, it's simply defined as urban areas where government, its institutions, and its residents have a culture of information. MIL cities recognize that you have to teach your citizens to be able, or your citizens have to have the ability to evaluate and use information effectively. So being part or being a MIL city means actively striving towards an informed, engaged, and empowered citizenry that then in turn leads to a healthier democracy. And I think Maya showed us how this is happening in Serbia. It really, you have to be able to engage your citizens in order for them to be a part and parcel of what's going on around them in their native countries. So the essential principles of communication, if you really want to be able to communicate and gain the trust of your citizens, you have to have ethical communication. And ethical communication has 4 parts to it. You have to be honest, okay? That means you don't lie to your citizens. You have to be transparent. And that means that you make all the necessary information available to the stakeholders. And that in turn means your citizens and the public in a very clear and understandable manner, and more importantly, available to them at any point in time. You have to be held accountable for what you say, owning responsibility for all your communication and being ready to answer any queries that your citizen or citizenry might have, and correct any misinformation promptly. And we are in the age of misinformation. It is bound to happen, but we can always go back and rectify. And you have to be inclusive. And this is what Felipe was actually talking about when we first started this webinar today, that we ensure that all the communications the government shares considers the diverse needs and contexts of the different audiences or stakeholders we have in the country, and that every single or every segment of the population has access to that information. So nobody is left out. So how does ethical communication play into local and state governments? It builds credibility, and that's the first step to having an informed citizenry. It encourages public engagement, and it fosters that sense of trust. If you don't have trust, then you cannot actually go out and put into play all these programs that you have. When your citizens feel that they're informed and they are heard, they are actually an active part of the process, they are more likely to participate in civic activities. And that in turn leads to democratic states and supports the government initiatives. So the significance of ethical communication in government refers to how the ways in by which the government actually disseminates information to different stakeholders. As we said, just to kind of recap quickly, it is honesty, transparency, inclusiveness, and accountability. It builds the trust between the government, citizens, and it improves at the end of the day engagement, which is the key to a functioning democracy. So implications of unethical communication, because it can also happen, it erodes public trust in government. So I am tying all of this in by actually giving examples. New Zealand is a prime example of ethical communication, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. The government used science, okay? They were very clear, very transparent about the information that they were sharing with the public. They were consistent, and they regularly updated the public about the situation. You have to have these open channels of communication. This, in turn, established a high level of trust and cooperation between the public because they understood the policies and why the government was doing what it was doing, which in turn led to effective management of the crisis. And New Zealand is lauded as one of the success stories of the state during the COVID-19 pandemic. So around the world, if we look at this, we do understand that misinformation and the ethical implications of communication are global issues. If we're talking about municipalities, if we're talking about state on the local and state level, these concepts are very important if we want to really have and engage people's daily lives. The effectiveness of local and state governance heavily relies on the quality of communication, which is then sandwiched by how the citizens actually understand or what they do with this communication, which then in turn leads to their level of engagement. And at the end of the day, we do want an engaged citizenry. I'm just going to give two examples quickly. Helsinki is known for its ethical communication, both at the local municipality level and at the state level, especially when it comes to its environmental policies. Very honest communication strategies have been fostered, especially when it comes towards sustainability goals that relate to in the environment and climate change, and how citizens themselves contribute to climate change, how Finnish citizens themselves actually do contribute. So therefore, you're taking what the abstract, or they took the abstract, and they actually applied it to people's lives after informing them. And there was a huge or high level of engagement between the citizens and the information that they were getting. Another good example is Seoul in South Korea. They have invested, and this was pre-pandemic, in digital literacy programs because they were aiming to build a digital-friendly infrastructure that helps their citizens to access, understand, and use information effectively around them in their daily lives. This really came in handy during the COVID-19 pandemic. So as a result, what they saw during the pandemic is that there is an increased awareness, understanding, and citizen engagement with what the local governments and state government was saying in regards to policies. So there are challenges. This stuff does not actually exist in a vacuum, and we need to understand the challenges in order to be able to address them. MIL and ethical implementation of MIL and ethical communication strategies is challenging, especially in the global south where there are limited resources, which these areas tend to have less access to digital technology. It's also challenging when you have a lack of awareness or understanding of the importance of MIL. Serbia, for example, is a very good, example of why you need to actually raise awareness and have all these programs so that your citizens know how to use information. And then resistance to change. We see this in several, areas or places around the world where those who benefit from the status quo can also hinder implementation when it comes to minorities, when it comes to, indigenous groups or those who are on the periphery. So the future trends that we need to be on the lookout for is the impact of technology, social media, AI, big data. Technologies like social media, they can offer new opportunities for disseminating information, but it's a double-edged sword. We also can be suffering from, deep fakes, cyber attacks, a lot of misinformation. So as technology evolves, we need to be cognizant of the positives and the negatives, and it is going to evolve. There's just no way around it, but we have to embrace, as I said, the challenges and the opportunities that new technologies present. So I'd like to end by, a call to action. As we look to the future, it's good to have these discussions because we can see, case studies and examples of implementation from across the world. It is clear that MIL and ethical communication go hand in hand, and that they continue to be critical components of good governance, both at the local and at the state level. So it is up to governments, institutions, civil society, and individuals to continue to prioritize these areas and develop strategies to further integrate them into our information and government systems. And as I said, it's always good to share because we can learn from one another. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Maha, for your presentation. Focus on communication, governance, and MIL city, the relationship between the two kind of topics. And you emphasize your communication on the essential principle of ethical communication in our country. You focus on honesty, transparency, accountability, and inclusivity. Very interesting communication. Surely you will share this presentation with us. So it is the time of question. So you are free to ask question to the speaker or in the group. So the floor is yours. Professor Felipe, you have the floor. If you have something to add before the question session.
Okay, my friend. Thank you so much to everyone here. Thank you so much to the audience too. This is a very special moment, of course, because we got here researchers, professors, and activists, and of course too, policymakers. These stakeholders are the middle of the MIL city networks and MIL city framework. In my opinion, we have got here to very rich contributions of to all. I congratulate everybody, and my final words are: we need, in my opinion, of course, we need policies, strategies, but policies and strategies to integrate all the stakeholders of the city. The MIL education or MIL cities is not only of a factor of education. We need to expand to all the city and integrate companies, marketing companies, of course, technological enterprise, of course, to the simple citizen, involved, in my opinion, too, the artists integrate in the real complete strategy for the city. That point is very important, in my opinion. Of course, the ethics is fundamental, because without ethics, we got all resources, all technologies, AI, but with ethics, without ethics, we know we can't to develop MIL approach in the practice. Well, in my opinion, these points are essential for us. Thank you so much, everyone, for your presence, for your contributions, especially, of course, Maja Zaric, Maha Bashri, Fischer, for your marvelous contributions, of course. Thank you so much to Professor Dr. Emmanuel Komi-Konako for your organization and for your support for us. Thank you so much to everybody, and we'll grow together in this approach. We need this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Felipe, for your conclusion. We have some questions, and I will let Professor Maha to answer. Yeah.
I have a question. Maya, you mentioned in your presentation, it's really interesting. You said that there is a TV channel now for media and information literacy in Serbia. So if you can speak more about that. And then my question is actually twofold. You chose television. You have the channel that is specifically for media and information literacy. Do you have a parallel, for example, website as well? And why TV? Is it because you're drawing a certain audience, or your research found that people will gravitate more towards TV, given the fact that everybody's online these days? I'm really interested in what you had to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Maha, for the question. Well, maybe I didn't, wasn't that clear. We don't have special channel. We have a show which is played on the public service media's first channel at the prime time Saturday time. So this TV show started last year, and it discusses the topics of media information literacy, and it's called Family Network. So this is targeted towards certain part of the audience, that is audience of the public service media, which is RTS, which is the largest has the largest share, so to say, in Serbia, in the total Serbia. But then we also had a series, 18 short series on media information literacy that were actually produced within the EU project on topics for the MIL literacy handbook for teachers. So that was also played during COVID times when we had online education for kids in home because schools were closed. So between the blocks, so this was targeted towards pre-university children, but we don't have special channel, TV channels. So we had also jingles on the national TVs with the national frequencies during the campaign, but that campaign was also online. So practically we have all of the time raising awareness on different channels for different target groups, so to speak, on media information literacy throughout the years.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So, is there anyone who wants to add something, contribute? Yeah, okay, we have Mrs. Sabrina Saint-Louis from Canada. You are welcome.
When he says Canada, it sounds like he's so far away from me. We're in the same city. Thank you very much, everyone, hi, Dr. Felipe. Thank you very much for your presentations, and particularly Serbia. I mean, you give us hope in making it in allowing us to see how it can be operationalized. Because my big concern is we're living in challenging times, and government and all those entities that would be behind making it happen are focusing on other priorities, such as rising interest rates and inflation, whether it's market fluctuations, climate change, impact on mental health, healthcare, reconciliation, and reparation. There are so many topics on the agenda right now that I wonder how you make, as you mentioned, Dr. Bashri, MIL a key component of good governance, while they're juggling a multitude of issues. And I wonder also if you have a sense of where MIL is at in other parts of the world. You mentioned South Korea and New Zealand and Serbia, but where is it at on the agenda of other countries at this rate?
That's actually an awesome question, and it's a part of my presentation that I took out because it was getting too long. And I really like what Maya was saying, because you can see it at the local level. It has to be local. It has to be, as Rachel said, bottom up. It cannot be top down. Very good example that I took out was Nigeria. And it's one of the countries, I said, the challenges are you have countries that don't have the means. We have climate change, we have a migration problem in Africa, we have a lot of poverty, we have places that don't have access to the internet, the infrastructure. So what's happening, again, to tie it to what Felipe was saying, at the local level, this happened in Lagos. The schools actually tapped into the industry to support MIL in the schools. So it was actually one city that did that at the state level, and it's working. What happened was they tapped into the industry. Industry provided tablets and laptops for the schools. Yes, they are refurbished, but at least it gives people a chance to, to put this into play. So it can happen, but I think you have to be very creative about it. That's one. Okay, especially in contexts like ours in Africa. And two, you have to have people like Maya who are really, really, really invested in it, who really believe in MIL. Yes, global, climate change is not going to go away. High interest rates are not going to go away. Conflict is not going to go away. But if you have that designated group that only focuses on this, I think we can really invoke the change. And to invoke the change, we have to be creative. And we cannot rely, especially in an African context, we cannot rely on our governments. We have to do it ourselves. I hope this answers your question.
Another question for Dr. Zaric. You mentioned handbooks. Are they adapted specifically to the Serbia context, or can they be used elsewhere in the world with some adaptation?
Thank you. Well, we started in 2018 with workshops in pre-university institutions just to check on which topics were relevant and challenging for children and youth. So from there, we actually detected new topics, and our basic background document was at the time UNESCO's MIL Curriculum for Teachers edition 2011. So this is how the whole Belgrade recommendations and the conference started for a year after that in 2019. So everything that we did was actually accustomed to our needs. But throughout my work, because I also hold many media literacy workshops for different kinds of groups and age, I see that more or less, we're a global village, so our needs are more or less the same because we have the world in our pocket and we're so attached to it. So I think, and I truly believe, that all of our handbooks could be really useful and adapted to local contexts if we had them in English, which we don't at the time. We do have, for example, the Media Literacy Handbook for Teachers and Educators, translated at a time in Hungarian and Albanian, which we have as national minorities in Serbia, but we have many more, and we will try to translate in more languages. And we also organized a website, which is a hub, so to say, for media literacy, where we put all the resources. Something that I see very useful is schools partnering with, as Maha said, with companies, but also with international organizations. So small projects that can deliver computers and ICT equipment on one hand, and can maybe translate some books and handbooks can also be useful, or even forums like this. International forums where we can have students and debates, and we have within UNESCO also youth debates on media information literacy. So these are all platforms and potential activities that can benefit citizens at the end, wherever they are.
Thank you so much for this explanation. So we have Sabrina, I don't know if this explanation suits you.
Actually does.
Okay, thank you.
Question would be for Dr. Fischer. Should we fear AI?
Okay.
My response to that is, and it links to what I said, I mean, AI is built on the interface or the underlying foundation of big data. And then the coded, right? So depending on the data that it gets, you know, that's what it's going to spew out. And, you know, if it's like you are what you eat. So if we as humans keep on inputting worrisome data and information and food into the system, it's going to have negative implications if you eat unwell. I am more concerned about the humans that are creating and contributing to the information than what I am of the AI itself. My opinion might change in 20 years, but I think it's humans, and that's why ethics is so important, that we have ethical decision-making and behavior, because more responsible creators and citizens ought to lead to more responsible output.
Thank you so much. We have Professor Felipe who wants to ask a question. Professor Felipe, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you so much. You are Professor Komi Konaku. I have two questions for the experts and to all the present here. My question are, what do you see can be the next steps for the MIL city approach? And the second question, what is the future of the MIL city approach? In the practice, in your local, in your city. This is the context.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Professor Felipe. Yeah, the question is for all.
And of course, for for the Mrs. Maja Zaric and Rachel Fischer and Maha Bashri.
So do I go first?
Of course, my dear.
Okay. So the future steps and okay. Well, the future steps that I anticipate for MIL cities is to be more agile. I think that MIL cities need to respond quickly more to the challenges that we have. We've been talking about AI, about ChatGPT, and so on. It's a daily worry, so to say, for all the citizens. And the use of all of the ICTs that we have is highly dependent on the media, digital information skills that citizens have from the earliest, from preschool all the way into the end of our lives. So it's a lifelong learning process that we need actually to step up as a variety of stakeholders that have interest in the development of these topics and skills within citizens. So I think that each city should establish like a small MIL alliance from different stakeholders within the city, and then connect to different, as UNESCO recommends, to different cities, different municipalities, different stakeholders to enrich their knowledge and to upgrade their skills. So also the AI, today's AI, in a year or in 10 years, it will be something else. The principle stays the same. It's us humans who create services like this. They need to be human-centric, human rights by design. Especially focus for me, example, is child rights by design, because they're so vulnerable. And from there, we can only move through media information literacy skills and knowledge and upgrade it. If this answers your question.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Dr. Maha, Dr. Rachel, Mrs. Sabrina, Dr. George Pont. Okay.
Maha, if you want to go first.
Okay, just quickly in a nutshell, where I see we're going, I have to agree with Maya. I think the problem with these, our understanding of technology is a bit convoluted. I think this is the issue. They are tools. We are human beings. We're the ones that made these tools. So they're under our control. My only issue with technology is the fact that, not issue, but we need to be, as Sabrina had asked, okay, so how do we get the others to catch up? If we are in an AI revolution right now, we have the global south that is so far off in most cases. And this will affect economies, people's livelihoods, the future. If we're talking about Africa, for example, youth, Africa is the last frontier. The youngest population on Earth is, or the majority of the youngest population on Earth is on that continent. You have an AI revolution, you have all this media and information literacy stuff, and we're not catching up. I think what we need to be looking at or planning for in the future is how can we catch up so that these people actually have a chance to be able to live a dignified life. That's one. The second thing that I think we also need to pay attention to, and Maya actually referred to that, we can all learn from one another. It might be written in Serbian. Have somebody translated into English as an intermediate language. And as Rachel said, we have dying languages. Take it, for example, and I'm going to give the Dinka language in South Sudan as an example, which has just established a written alphabet. They didn't have a written alphabet, and that's to archive the language, the history, and the culture, and then transfer it into that language. So we have to work with one another. We have to learn from one another, and do not reinvent the wheel. It worked there, take it, run away from it, with it. And I think if we do that, it's going to help everybody.
Emmanuel, I can jump in quickly, Felipe, on your question for the future is, I would say, take it home. Policymakers, educators, politicians, whatever we are, having these discussions at home with friends, family, children, in ways that are easily understandable, and that we make sure not only do people around us understand, our children will get more sensitized to this, I mean, big frameworks and legislation is important, but I think also we affect behavior in the house, in our family, in our dinners and all of those. So take it home.
Thank you. Thank you for your answer. Professor Sabrina, Professor Georgie.
Okay, I'm going to take the example of Canada where I live. And I'll use the example of, I'm part of I work for a nonprofit organization. And as part of the work, we participate in other networks, groups of people that get together and try to address certain transformational, organizational transformation, education and youth, immigration, business, arts and culture, and etc. And I can tell you that in our discussions, in trying to come up with solutions, MIL never came up, not once. And I'm pretty sure that most people are not aware. Or if they've heard of it somehow, it's not fully integrated in the solution package. And I think AI, as I asked the question earlier, should we fear it? I also think it's a unique opportunity to actually present MIL as a solution. You fear it, but what other options do we have as regular citizens? As it's been mentioned several times, how regular citizens should be involved in policy development, in advancement. We all want to protect our children. We all want to protect ourselves. So how do we do that? Right now, we're hearing the big ones, the big companies talking about it. Oh, we have to be careful. There has to be ethics developed. But at the same time, regular citizens know that they're not going to walk to Parliament Hill in Canada and start voicing an opinion while they're facing, for example, wildfires. So how do we seize the opportunity of the talk that's out there about AI to present MIL as a solution that, in fact, doesn't cost a lot of money, because that's usually a concern, right? Oh, how much is it going to cost and how do we do it? It can be shared. The information you mentioned, I mentioned the handbooks earlier. All that information can be shared at grassroots level in the educational system. And from there, bottoms up approach, as Rachel mentioned, then we can get somewhere, take it home. I like the expression "take it home" because right now I'm not hearing it because people are focusing on so many other issues, and we're trying to react to AI rather than coming up with a portfolio of solutions that would help us address it effectively in an intelligent manner based on knowledge and behaviors that will allow us to navigate through these challenging times in spite of everything else that's happening. So to me, it's a communication campaign really that has to happen somehow at all levels for it to, and show it. Like, I think I was flabbergasted hearing Serbia say you did all that and how, so it can be done. You're showing us that it can actually be done, but our municipalities are not focusing on that at this time, unfortunately. So communication will be key.
Thank you.
Professor Jorge Pontes, you got the floor. If you want it.
First, I want to thank everybody by the opportunity to listen the points that have been presented here about MIL cities in Brazil. We have a very big and complex society here in Brazil. Everybody knows. Professor Felipe has given the first step, we can say that, in MIL cities here in Brazil. And I think that our next step is to make the policymakers in Brazil understand this concept. This is the first thing we have to do. So about EI, the EI is not regulated in Brazil, and this is very dangerous in our society because misinformation have prejudiced our election, and some problems have happened in our society with our youth, and this is a point that our government And here I am speaking, I am a policymaker from the government because I work in the Ministry of Work. So our government is especially concerned to this technology, the AI. But as I said before, we have a complex society, and the stakeholders have to take time to understand the concept of MIL cities. That I think this is the way to get a good opportunity of AI in our society. This is my point of view at this moment.
Okay. Thank you so much, Professor George Pontes, for your contribution. It is very appreciated. So I think that we are at the end of this meeting. Quickly, Professor, I will begin with our key guest. Yeah, Mrs. Maya, it is the end of this session. What is your conclusion in 1 or 2 words?
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for having me today with you. I follow the work of especially Professor Felipe Chibás Ortiz and some of you, and I will continue to do so. My conclusion is that this is something that is precious. Format of international discussions, which is multi-stakeholder approach. So this is something that we need to hold on to and learn from one another. So each country has its specifics. Some of our countries are big, some of our countries are small, somewhere it's easier or somewhere it's much more harder, but I'm quite sure that we can all use different examples of how to or how not to, and this is something that I would hold on to.
Thank you so much for this presentation, your contribution. It is very appreciated. We know that tomorrow we will be together in Serbia, and we will be here in Africa. We will be invited in Brazil, in every continent to implement what we are doing, a great work we are doing in Serbia. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you. So we are going to ask our Dr. Professor Maha to tell us in 1 word, not 2, what your last word of this session. You have the floor.
I wanted to say 3 words. Can I say 3 words?
Yeah, you are allowed.
Reinvent, actually 4. Don't reinvent the wheel. It's done somewhere else. Take it, adapt it to your needs. That's it. This way, government's always going to say we don't have money. That's the way, one of the ways we can actually do this. It has to happen.
Thank you so much, Dr. Maha, for this kind work. It is the key of our development, ethical communication in our countries. Sabrina, you have the floor.
Okay, forward. MIL, part of our common language.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Professor George Pontes.
I think that I will say 3 words: learning, information, and ethics. This is a thing that we prepare for.
Thank you so much for your 3 words. They are the key of development in our countries, in the world. And we'll finish with Professor Felipe to conclude this session.
Thank you so much. Professor Emmanuel Comiconacó. Thank you so much to everybody. This is a very special session. We have here many contributions, international contributions, and I am really happy for that. Of course, I have some ideas, and I want to share some ideas about it. For example, we got indicators and metrics, and we need to use these metrics to evaluate the cities. I like so much the presentation of dear colleague, Mr. Maja Zaric, because she used the indicators and metrics in their city. This is very important point. Metrics to evaluate and to diagnosis and to change the cities. It's very important too, in my opinion. Other idea, the ethics. The ethics is essential to transform the cities with indicators too. In my opinion, it's very important too. Other point, the involve all the stakeholders in the city, and fundamentally the faith agent of the transformation, of faith agent of innovation. And it's very important too, this networking, this network. We are a network of scientists, of policymakers, and people interested in MIL approach and MIL city approach. Thank you so much for your presence. Thank you so much for your contributions. And of course, we are here to grow together. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Felipe, for your final word. We are here to grow together. We are here to build this project together in every country, and we need everybody. Your support is essential. And today, you have demonstrated that we are together to grow, to build, and to let our world be great again. Thank you so much. Have a nice weekend, and we'll meet the next year, next month, I will say. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mrs. Maja. Greet our government for us. Tell him that we are here and we need his support to grow these projects. Dr.
Yes.
Maha, thank you so much.
Thank you so much to everybody. Thank you so much, and grow together, people.
Yes.
We need to work together.
Yes.
Really. In fact.
Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.